Today is the first day of a 4-week series on addiction and recovery and numbing. See, because many of us who don't have an official addiction, we're pretty proficient at numbing. And so what I thought I'd do today, to start off the month, because I believe in truth in advertising, is to tell you my story. And so for those of you that don't have a tradition in, or a background in 12-step, what that means is I'm going to tell you about my life from the perspective of addiction and recovery. So let's start out in a very traditional way. My name is Chris Terry. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Chris.
That was completely lacking enthusiasm. My name is Chris Terry. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Chris.
And because I said a prayer to a God I didn't believe in, I have been sober since February the 8th, 1998. And previous to that, it took me a 12-pack of beer and a pint of whiskey to get through every single day. She said that's a lot of calories. There's a program for you, sister. Honey, would you give me a glass of water, please? I'm just stomping on myself here. All right, so I'm gonna tell you the stuff from the perspective of my life today. And some of it's a little bit gory. I'm not going to do what we call a drunk-a-log, but I need to tell you everything that I know that has brought me to this point. So I grew up in Northern California in a very upper middle class white home. In a lot of ways, Northern California 30 years ago was more socially progressive than Dallas right now. I had, starting at the age of 4, a lot of sexual trauma, and that continued for 8 years. And again, I tell you that not as a source of sympathy, but for you to understand that there is something, in my opinion, to the idea that alcohol, drugs, and other behaviors allow us to numb pain that we don't know what to do with. Thank you. And so, for me, I'm so deeply grateful for alcohol and drugs. They kept me alive because I was bearing so much pain that I needed something, and any other something I didn't know to ask for, I couldn't find, I don't know. But what I know is that they kept me alive until they began to kill me. And I think that's true of a lot of things. There are things that we do in our lives that keep us alive until they begin to kill us. So I left Northern California for college at 17. I was immature in many ways. I was not prepared to be away from home. I had been very rageful from the age of, since early adolescence. All that pain was bubbling over, and I didn't know what to do with it. And 8 years ago, when my mom died, we were cleaning out her house. I was pulling all the stuff out of the closet in my old bedroom, and there were just holes in the wall from where I had stuck my fist through. Because I had a lot to be mad about, and I didn't have any tools to deal with it. My first tool started at the age of 12 when I smoked my first joint, and that's what got me through adolescence. When I left for college, I found other more I'm not sure what to say about that. I found a lot of other options besides just pot. And alcohol was still not a big deal for me. And alcohol started later when I gave up the drugs, but alcohol was the thing that almost killed me, right? Because it didn't matter how much amphetamines I did, I could drive a car, sort of, fast. I drove a car fast. But but nothing else made me black out, right? And so the pain was going on, and this thing that like no amount of alcohol and drugs could block the amount of pain I was in anymore. They became less and less effective, and those things then began to start to kill me. And they started to kill me because I think there's a line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says you don't have a choice but to go straight to oblivion at some point, right? Because nothing else is working. And I have, in all honesty, I've been in a lot of fights. I was a mad drunk. I just soon cold cock you as have a conversation. I've been to jail more times than I can count on one hand, but less than I can count on two hands. I got a DWI, which is in 1990, I think it was. So in 1992, I found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time, and I was like, you've got to be kidding, God. Because see, what had happened for me is, and you guys have heard me say this before, when I was a little kid, the God that was presented to me was Catholic. And it didn't fit for me, it didn't work for me for so many different reasons. And this big God that was supposed to be love, which never really made any sense, because he talked about God being love, and then there's a guy hanging on a cross every Sunday out of the year except one when they draped him. Or maybe they draped him before, I don't know. So something didn't work, but what I did know is I had all of this pain, all of this stuff that was going on. I had nobody to talk to, no way to resolve it, nowhere to go that was safe. And where was this God? Where was this God that was supposed to help me? Yeah, I had about as much, at that point I was desiring God as much as someone who was thoroughly and utterly hateful and resentful could. Right? I was like, I got no time for this. So when I got in and I saw those 12 steps on the wall, there was God, 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 higher power. I'm like, nah. There's got to be another way. And for some people there is. There's a phrase that you'll hear in recovery rooms sometimes, and the phrase is, I became as willing as only the dying could be. I became as willing as only the dying could be. And I was. Because my sobriety date, remember, is not until 1998. And I found recovery in 1992. And I fought and kicked, and people would explain it's, you get to make up God, because it's God as you understand God, so you can make that up, it doesn't matter. But the hate and the resentment against anything that had refused to save me was too strong. And by 1998, well, I said, a 12-pack of beer, pint of whiskey, that's what it took me to get through the day. Food was optional. I had a little tiny, basically slightly more than a studio appointment. I kept the blinds closed all day long. I slept in the daytime. I woke up just in time to go to the liquor store. I drank to oblivion. I blacked out. I woke up just in time for the liquor stores to open. Go get beer and do the whole thing again. And I was so sick on every level. When I finally, so February the 7th, 1998, I went to bed and I woke up February the 8th, and all of a sudden, I didn't want to drink. Now, I had been praying to this God that I didn't believe in for something that I didn't want for the better part of 6 years. And I woke up and it was gone. The compulsion to drink. See, that's the thing about addiction. And again, this is, I'm not an expert. I'm a field tester. That's what I am. I'm a field tester of addiction. And my studies show that what addiction means, when you're full-blown crossed over in addiction, you've lost the power of choice. And that's an interesting thing, because Ernest Holmes, the founder of our philosophy, says that the divine plan is one of freedom. Freedom is always, so you get to choose, you get to pick. And so I was as good as dying because I couldn't choose anymore. I had chosen over and over and over again. And my choices weren't sticking. And we're going to talk about that later in the month, because like I said, even folks that, how many times do you say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, and then the next day you do it again? So just in case you think you're immune, we'll see if we can convict you by the end of the month. So I woke up on February 8th, and I didn't want to drink anymore. And, you know, I had been retaining knowledge from the rooms of recovery for a long time. It just wasn't sticking. And I don't know how to explain that, because the prayer didn't change, you know what I mean? Like, I was just, this is what I know I did right. I just didn't give up. And I never went too far away for people who could see a different outcome than the one I could see. Because see, I couldn't even imagine going through a day without drugs and alcohol, or alcohol in the end. I couldn't imagine it. But there were entire rooms of people who could not only imagine it, they'd actually been doing it. And so I hung around, I kept going. And sometimes I would like go to a meeting, get a desire chip, and then in Oakland there used to be a bar across the street. You could go give them your desire chip and they give you a free beer. I know it's tacky as hell, but it's true. So I just kept going. I just kept going. And what I know is that there were people that gave up on me. Really, they did. And then there were people who never gave up on me, and who always saw that something different was possible, a different future was possible. And those are the people that loved me and loved me and loved me. And it's because of people like that and rooms like that that I know the power of community. You know, the thing about New Thought is, because we don't have like one of those gods that's out there that expects us to go to church or something, that guilt doesn't really get people here. But the reason that I come to community, first in recovery and then in spiritual community, is because all of y'all see something in me that I forget about. And we see that in you. There's another phrase from recovery. How am I doing on time, y'all? Oh, good. So there's another phrase in recovery, like, if you sober up a horse thief, what you have is a sober horse thief. And although I never stole a horse, probably because I couldn't fit it in my trunk, I was the classic, you know, I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief when I got sober. That was the life. That's where addiction led me. That's where it took me to. And so the process began, having to unwind that and make amends and restitution for the damage that I'd done in the world. That didn't happen overnight. It took quite some time. I had some money to pay back. I had some people that never wanted to see me again. I wouldn't have wanted to see me either, frankly. And every little step, and that is both literal and figurative, every step led me closer to freedom. Now, what I want, you know, I would not trade. I lost a lot of years to drugs and alcohol, but I wouldn't trade it, because you know what I learned? I learned that a young, in some ways spoiled little white girl from Northern California who had a lot of trauma from childhood and had done a lot of her own trauma in adulthood, that might have looked like a hopeless, that was suffering from a hopeless condition of mind and body, which is what the recovery literature calls it, that, okay, you can't get here from there. You can't get here from there, and yet I got here from there. So what I want you guys to know, because the gift that gave me is when I look at you and you think there's something that you can't overcome, what I know is that there's a power and presence in the universe. You can call it God, you can call it law, you can call it whatever you want, but there is something big enough that you and it together can get you from the impossible there to the actual here. Because if this power, this whatever you want to call it, I was dying. I was dying. And, you know, I had a friend that told me, she said, I hope you're not so smart, because, you know, I had all the answers. Like, I went to the rooms of recovery, but I knew everything already. Well, you know. She said, I hope you're not so smart that you have to, that you'll get it when you're 6 feet under. You know, it is merely by what I would call grace that I didn't kill myself or somebody else in the process. Really. So see, the gift that gave me is I see what's possible. I know it's possible to get from that impossible there to the actual here. And not only that, to live that thing that's the 12th step where our lives become about our service. For me, it turned into not only people in recovery or people trying to get some recovery, but to y'all, to standing and being a witness to the wholeness that comes when we partner with God to live. So I want to go back and say, you know, because it's like still it's kind of a miracle to me, right? Because I don't know why I said like the same or similar prayer for as long as I did, and then boom, finally it worked. And from a new thought perspective, from our philosophical perspective, when you pray believing, I mean, the words that you speak, they have a lot of power. And I don't know why it is that the words that I spoke had none until they had some, other than because you guys saw it, because the people who love me, they love me so much and so thoroughly, and they thoroughly saw possibility, and they loved me and continue to love me until I could love myself, and somewhere along the line something stuck. And if I could bottle that up, I'd own an island somewhere. The thing that I know to say, no matter what your thing is it's possible. Just don't give up and don't go too far away from the people that can see the truth of you. I think I want to do this. I was making the mistake of reading some, you know, they send me churchy kind of stuff. I don't know if there's like a database of everybody that has an REV in front of their room, in front of their name, but somewhere somebody's keeping track of that, and then when you get that REV, they send you some literature and try to sell you some stuff. And anyway, I was reading some of that literature, and it was saying that there's this trend right now. Actually, it was somebody recommending it, and one of y'all sent it to Kathy Thompson, but I'd already read it. Why did I have to say that? That was funny. I cracked myself up. Hey, I got it. See, I got the answers. See, there's some things that just don't change. Like, I still want to already have the answers. You can ask me a question now. The recovery has given me the grace to say, I don't know. I was wrong. Can you help me? Because when you've gone as low as I've gone, and you just, like, there's not a lot of pretense left. Well, that's a lie. There's still some pretense left. But I like to think that there's not. And there's a lot less than there used to be. And so, see, I'm teachable, I'm helpable, I'm willing to ask for help. And I've completely lost track of where I was going with this thought. Can anyone help me?
County Johnson sent me something.
The County Johnson sent me something. Anyway, all of this just jibber-jabberish to say that this guy recommended, if you want to, he said, have people tweet a question at the end of your talks. Well, I don't know how to do Twitter. But I'm going to invite you, if anybody, is there any, do you have anything you'd like me to address? Any questions? We got like 5 or 7 more minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you find forgiveness in any of your recovery?
That is I think it's essential. Yeah. So yes, I did. Is it Debbie?
No.
Tell me your name. You're Debbie. You're who? Deborah. Oh, Deborah. Hey. Okay, so forgiveness. That's a really great question. How many of you are familiar with the 12 steps? Right? So for me, the characterization of the 12 steps is, remember I said like I'm numbing, right? So eventually when I quit the numbing behavior, then all the stuff that I was numbing, plus a lot of other stuff, comes bubbling to the surface. And there's this beautiful thing in recovery, because if you go through those steps, they present you with the opportunity to unload resentment, unload shame, unload guilt, and leave it in the past so that we don't carry it forward. And so I would say that steps 4 through 9, 4 through 10, 4 through 9, yes, there's a whole series in there that allows you to say, well, who am I mad at? And how do I unburden myself of this? And the thing about, like, when your brain is addled from alcohol, drugs, and behaviors, the thing about that is, like, you start thinking that they did stuff to you, even when they didn't. And so a lot of that stuff, through the process of what we just call 4th and 5th step, gets cleared out. You get to a place of right thinking about it. And then, for people like me who had trauma from childhood, I didn't have a part in that. You see, that was not, I did not manufacture that particular misery. And my understanding of the philosophy of New Thought doesn't teach me that I created or attracted that. Looks reasonably safe to say that stuff happens, right? And I want you to know that all that trauma, I wouldn't trade it for a thing, because it's allowed me to be where I am today. But there was a process of unwinding that. And the process for me involved, it involved first doing the steps, right? Getting therapy when therapy was required. See, because the place I was going is a place that most of us can intellectually get to, which is that, like, everybody's doing it the best that they can, and they weren't doing it to me. Like my brother, it wasn't about me, it was about him, his dysfunction. And his pain and his mental illness, but I can't just skip to that. That's called bypassing, spiritual bypassing, right? When it's like, I get the ideal of we're all one and there's nothing to forgive, but the actual human being that lives in me, who is damaged and deeply broken by his actions, had to actually go back to some degree, go back into it so that I could come back through it, right? Which was not pain-free, but not as painful as I thought it was going to be. And then, through the journey, one day I woke up and I thought about him and him and him. And there was nothing there anymore. I was finished. I was complete. But it was a journey. And You know, I think that's a journey that we all get to take, addiction or not. Because so long as we're holding on to something from back there, we're the one that has to drag the weight of that around. And it's a process. So wherever you are in the process is okay. What I can guarantee you is you will come out on the other side. And you will find gifts from that pain that you never imagined. And it doesn't mean you have to like it. It just means you're free from it. Does that help?
What do you do now instead of numbing? Because we all have our relative addictions, right? And we have to.
I have new and sophisticated ways of numbing. Okay, truth, you know, like, I'm the kind of alcoholic that, like, you know, if one dryer sheet is good, two must be better. And so I have a myriad of, I did not put down every addiction when I put down those addictions. And so what are the helpful ways? The first thing that comes to mind, Renee, is that I found a spirituality that works for me. And I have found a great deal of the time that I actually want to be present. Because like I'm not carrying the pain load that I was carrying before. And so there's not as much need to numb. However, I think it's natural that, so if the idea is that we are here in the Earth School to be growing, to be unfolding ourselves, evolving, growing in the image and likeness of our Creator, which, you know, whichever that phrasing works for you. There's a great line at the very end of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a phrase in there, and it says something. I think it's like, trudging the happy road of destiny. Well, sometimes I'm skipping along the happy road, and sometimes I'm trudging. And when I'm in a period of trudging, those are the times when I'm more likely to want to numb. And whether it's just it's something going on inside of me that's happening, or the circumstances of my life, when things do like that, then that's when I want to check out. And so I guess where I've come to is to be conscious of that, right? And you know, that we did a book a couple of months ago, and Brene Brown says that what we're seeking is comfort, authentic comfort, but we numb to try to make ourselves comfortable. And I guess what I do is try to pay attention and say, what am I seeking? Because if I don't want to just check out, sometimes I do, and that might look like a little more TV than I usually allot, more Facebook than I usually allot, more reading of the news than I usually allot. What I've learned to do when things are rough and I'm finding the urge to numb is to say, what do I need here? Do I need more time with my friends? Do I need time alone? So the strategy becomes, instead of checking out, I'm checking in. Does that make sense? And I think what is a check-in is different for all of us. There are spiritual practices, there are spending time in nature. I think we all have to negotiate, like, what brings us home to ourselves and what brings us home to the presence of the divine with us, as us, in us. We have to determine those things for ourselves. And then, sometimes they change and we have to rediscover. Because we're not static, right? We're growing and we're changing. And so maybe 6 months ago, dance brought you home to yourself. And maybe now you don't know if it does. Does that help? I think we got time for, what time is it?
It is 12:25.
Ooh, I'm running late. Okay, one more question.
Would you say that ideas
and like reading and stuff like that, or small behavior changes in practice of like the current moment, which one would have the most power over time to change?
So Steve's question is, would I say that small behavior changes or change of ideas or change of the level of consciousness, which one has a bigger impact? Let me give a little context before I answer that, Steve, because it's really important. One of the primary things we teach in the philosophy of New Thought is what you say after I am is very, very important, because you're claiming it for yourself over and over. The thing you say after I am is really, really important. And so one of the things that people like when they first discover New Thought, and they come from a recovery background, people will say, or the question will come up, well, if that's my word, if that's so important, then how can you say you're an alcoholic? I mean, how do you reconcile that? The way that I reconcile that is because when I say I'm an alcoholic, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It only means what I think it means. So, there was a time in my life before I was an alcoholic when I thought an alcoholic looked and was a certain thing, you know, under a bridge, scruffy, smelly, whatever. When I say I'm considering I'm an alcoholic, what I'm telling you is that I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless condition of body and mind, and that is possible. And so when I say I'm an alcoholic, when I speak my word, it is not, there's nothing diminishing about it. It is powerful. Powerful, powerful. So that's the thought part. And so so when something shifts in here, right, change is possible. The other idea that Steve is bringing up is that we can actually initiate change at the level of behavior. And I think it's a cycle. I think you jump in wherever you're capable of jumping in. If the first place that you can go to make changes is ideas and exposure to new ideas or shifting your, what we would call consciousness, I think that's a great place. And I also think, in fact I know, every once in a while, I like to go to yoga. And when I say I like to go to yoga every once in a while, I go more than I actually like to go. And I could sit around and try to think my way into going to yoga and that it's going to be a good idea. And you know when I'll go? When hell freezes over. Because it's hot in there and there's some other stuff. Okay, so no matter how much thinking, no matter how much changing of the ideas I try to do, it's not going to give me yoga. What's going to get me to yoga is to get up and go and to ask for help. And it's usually in the form of my beloved who's like, don't you want to go to yoga? So I think we jump into the cycle of change wherever we can. And there's no wrong place. Now what I do know is you can change the behaviors, but if something doesn't shift, the new behavior won't stick. So sometimes I like to go to yoga. And then I want to go, right? Like, because it's like, I'm just going to do this new thing. And then I want to go to yoga. And at least temporarily something has shifted because I'm like actually into it. But if the idea doesn't change at a deep level, then the new behavior is not going to stick. Does that help? Is that clear? So either place is good, as long as any place is good. Wherever you are is good. Whatever you're capable of at the place that you are is good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Brad, is there anything else I need to say here? You're good? Good. Brad's good. Yeah, so one last thing, it's, I'm a ham, I love to talk about myself, and I had a little bit of trepidation about telling y'all my story today. Because I don't want to make it about me. And yet, you cannot see the power of a higher power at work if I don't make my story transparent to you. So I put on Facebook yesterday that I'm telling my story today, but the star of the story is God.